Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Town of Montgomery Industrial Development Agency meeting for August. And we do have a public hearing scheduled with Walden Construction Enterprise here in a few moments. I would like to introduce everybody, starting on my far right with Board Member John Dixon, Matt Stoddard. We have Bob Santo on the screen here. Hey Bob, welcome. And that's as permitted by the Public Officers Law, Section 104.4. Connor Eckert, Executive Director. I'm Jeff Christ, Chairperson. Tom Jones, Board Member. We have Megan Herper, our Secretary. Rick Golden, Counsel. Billy Iverson on the live stream. And Laura Evans doing the stenography, I presume, for Walden Construction. We first have consideration of the July 13th, 2021 meeting minutes. Any additions or corrections? I want to thank Megan for the detail on those minutes. I think she really captured every important item there. Would anyone like to make a motion to accept those minutes?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, John Dixon. A second to that motion?
Second.
By Tom Jones. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Motion carried. Our next item, we'll move into the public hearing. And I'd like to read a small portion of the public notice, which was sent out on July 15th of 2021. Notice, and this is the notice that was sent out at that time. It's hereby given that a public hearing pursuant to Section 859 of the General Municipal Law of the State of New York will be held here by the Town of Montgomery IDA on the 18th day of August at 5:30 p.m. here at Town Hall, 110 Bracken Road, Town of Montgomery, Orange County, New York. Okay? Walden Construction Enterprise LLC has submitted an application to the agency, which is us, requesting that the agency consider undertaking a project for the benefit of the company. Said project consisting of the following: the acquisition of an interest in approximately 6.2 acre parcel of land located at 120 and 126 North Montgomery Street in the Village of Walden, Town of Montgomery, Orange County, New York. Secondly, the construction on the land of an approximately 99,075 square foot senior citizen, age 55 plus, market rate rental housing building with 69 dwelling units and amenities, and the reconstruction and the improvement of an approximately 1,040 square foot existing building to be used as an office for the senior housing building. The agency is considering whether to undertake the project to provide certain exemptions from taxation with respect to the project. The agency at said time, which is now here, place the opportunity to hear all persons with views on either the location and or nature of the proposed project or the financial assistance being contemplated by the agency in connection with the proposed project. We also have a public opportunity to participate by dialing in to 844-854-8432 and enter the access code when prompted, 2166-376-598 pound, if they would like the opportunity to comment that way. And Connor will monitor that phone. Additional information can be obtained and written comments may be addressed to myself, Jeffrey Chris, Chairperson, Town of Montgomery, IDA, here at 110 Bracken Road, Montgomery, New York, 12549. I would ask people to be courteous about the time and suggest 5 minutes or less for each person. I will monitor that appropriately. I think, I will encourage the board as we conclude this portion of the public hearing to consider taking written comments for another 10 days after tonight's process, if anyone has more to tell us than time permits comfortably. With that, did you want to say anything, Connor?
No.
You good? I would ask the applicant if they would like to, Michelle Kennedy, representing the applicant, provide some brief comments in opening the discussion. Michelle.
Thank you, Chairman Twist. For the record, I'm Michelle Kennedy with the law firm of Whiteman, Osterman, and Hanna, and I'm joined this evening by Richard Lampert of Real Estate Market Research and Consulting. At the board's last meeting, the board indicated that they would like to receive additional information with respect to the market analysis, particularly in terms of rents, and with respect to the availability of housing in the village of Walden. And while this particular moment may not be the best time to present that information, I do want you to be aware that Mr. Lampert has graciously given us time this evening to be available to answer any questions that the board may have or that the public may have with respect to those two topics. So just be aware that he is here. He's an expert appraiser. He's engaged in the market analysis with respect to this project. He is aware of the affordability and cap to rent offer that we submitted to the board and is posted to your website. And he can speak in relation to that offer and the potential rents that the project may otherwise receive if that offer is not in place. But again, I think that this opportunity is for the public primarily to voice their concerns, and we welcome their comments. We'll certainly listen intently and take their comments into account as we move through these proceedings. And again, we welcome their comments and questions. So thank you again for the opportunity to present to the board.
Thank you, Michelle. Could I see a show of hands of who would like to speak tonight? Very good. Would any of you like to begin the public comments? John Ravella?
Revella. Move this up. Is that okay? Want to mess this up?
Please. I think that's fine.
Just do this. Walk
John,
around the room.
see if it's on,
It's
John.
not,
No,
it's
no.
not, we couldn't hear the first lady speak.
Now it's on.
Oh, dear. Sorry about that.
Okay. Let's see if it wasn't working. It's close enough. Okay, let me first start by saying that personally and on behalf of the village, we're in favor of the project in general. We were delighted to hear from the developer when they first came to the village about coming and starting a senior housing project that is much needed in our community. Touting the development of an old gravel bank in an area that's been slated for development for some time was very encouraging, and we were very supportive. The board of trustees went out of their way to try and help encourage the development there by making some zoning changes and encouraging the development. The developer was also very enthusiastic about trying to bring some tax revenue back to the village in the form of property taxes and other fees that are to come in from the building of the development. So the community itself was very encouraged because a lot of people have families that need housing, especially in that age bracket. They're very difficult to find. Some housing complexes in the area have 1 to 3 year waiting lists for senior housing, 55 and up. So it was, we are in favor of the development in general. What I'm not really encouraged by is the request for a pilot to put the burden on the rest of the taxpayers for services that are going to be in that community. Isn't fair to the rest of us. Granted, they're 55 and up. Doesn't mean they're not going to have children living in the place. It's not exclusive. They're touted as being market rate. We went back and the board changed the code to allow 55 and up as opposed to 60 years old and up to help make it a little more attainable, to make sure the units are going to be filled, there won't be a vacancy, so there won't be a problem for the owner either. One thing we were encouraged by as well is they were going to put a sidewalk in front of the development to encourage walking to downtown and local shopping, which was something we've always looked for in any project in the village. I mean, there are some give and take things there. They wanted to have separate buildings. We ended up having one building. There was a lot of give and take from the planning board side and on the village board side to make the project more affordable for the developer. So when we found that they were coming for a pilot, it was a little discouraging for us. And I think that I can speak on behalf of the majority of the residents and the board in saying that we oppose giving a pilot and those kinds of benefits to the project when the developer had initially come to us saying that they were coming to bring tax revenue to the village. So now they want to take that back is discouraging, and obviously we oppose that. There are going to be police calls there, fire calls there, there's going to be services that are going to be needed there. I did hear something from the developer about putting more water and sewer services in, and yes, they'll pay for the water and sewer service, but we have to pay to get it there as well. So it's not really like we're earning a lot of money from that. It's mostly a wash. So I don't want to take up too much time, but I just like to reiterate that we are, and I think anyone here is going to say that they're in favor of the project in general, and we want it to move forward. I just don't see how a market rate housing project that came to us touting bringing tax revenue to the village is going to now request a tax break. So, thank you.
Thank you, John. Who else would like to speak at this time? Welcome, your name, please?
Willie Carley. I'm also on the village board. I'm a resident of Walden. I just speak on behalf of the people that I know and the individuals that approach me that we still oppose the tax revenue, the increase. As the village manager stated, we do want the project for our seniors, but it's the increase that we're opposing. So with that being said, I want to also just yield my time to our village mayor so that he can have a little bit more time of my time plus his time to present his information, if that's okay with the board. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Willie. John Ramos, welcome. Hang on one second.
Ladies, gentlemen. Are we good?
Yes, good to go.
This thing is a little flimsy. There you go. Good evening, ladies, gentlemen. I won't go into the niceness of this because I'm going to relate my time or expire my time. I have before me Trustee Lynn Thompson and Trustee Brian Sebring and Deputy Mayor Willie Carley. We sit here, obviously, we do want the project. We wanted a project in 2017 when they approached the village board. We were excited that we were going to check off one of our boxes for senior residents in the village. Very excited. We compiled a committee within the board. We continued with the processes with the old developer and making sure that there are certain things that we're going to need within the village. Amenities. If you wanted more than 60 units, obviously you needed a community center, you need a library, you need a sidewalk around the facility. I don't see the plans before you, but those particular plans, that particular frame was our idea, was the Village of Walden's idea, and it was put on paper by the developer. Everything that you read in this process is our idea. We wanted senior residences in the Village of Walden. it came to me that I was really surprised that recently that the developer came before you asking for what we call a pilot. You have to, I know the decision is upon you, and we're looking at the UTEP process and the IDA processes, and I feel about the 7,000 other feelings in the village, that the process of providing a pilot is not economically sound for the village of Walden. We're going to continue with, we're looking at the senior citizens, what they call a residential place for senior citizens, an exquisite, if you want to use those words, because that's what it was on the plans. We lowered the age from 60 to 55. That was our process, in order to entice this developer to come and build on 6.2 acres on North Montgomery Street. These are the things that we worked on, and there was countless hours, not only with the planning board, but us on the village. We passed a resolution, changing our zoning for that. And now in 2021, developers are asking for a pilot. I hate to tell you, but there's 21 pilots in the town of Montgomery, unless my numbers are incorrect, and Walden doesn't have any. The reason why is because we are a small village. We look for these type of taxations to aid the development of our village, our water system, our sewer system, our infrastructure. I mean, we were 1863. We still have pipes out there that are probably just that old. We need help. And by affording this pilot to this to the developer would be catastrophic to our village. Pick another project. We'll look at that. But as you can see, we're standing here in total solidarity on this. I looked at both our comprehensive plans, Town of Montgomery and ours. I do not see one paragraph, one statement of allowing our village or the town to allow a pilot within our jurisdiction. Granted, most of the people who are going to reside there are 55 and above. They're not Social Security benefit received yet until 62 or thereafter. The average Social Security person is averaging about $1,700 for a man, and I don't know why it's less for a woman, but $1,400 for a woman. Now, their proposed rent is $1,700. How are you going to live in a brand new residential place when you have to pay $1,700 in rent? I have an issue with that. Senior citizens are in our village are one of our most valuable resources, along with our children and everybody else in the village. So we pay particular attention to them. So in closing, I know my time is going down pretty bad, but we are here to explain that this project is not usable for the village of Walden. It does not fit our comprehensive plan that we've taken a lot of time to develop. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
The only thing I would say, John, when you say the project doesn't fit, you're talking specifically towards the tax abatements, not the project itself.
Correct. As I stated before, we're in for the project, but we're not in for the pilot. And I speak for the entire village, our entire village board, that it's not a fit.
Board, any questions for the mayor? Thank you, John.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, board members.
Mr. Chris,
Yes.
I did not raise my hand to speak,
Yeah.
but I would just like to make one comment.
And your name, you're Lynn Thompson?
I am. I just have one comment.
Yep.
When you began reading the document that you read this evening, one of the very first sentences that you read referenced the benefit of the company. I understand there's always a benefit to a developer, to a project, but it should be strongly considered the benefit of the Village of Walden. And I agree with my colleagues that I don't think granting a 10-year pilot for this project is for the benefit of the Village of Walden. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary Ellen Matisse.
I have to send this to you electronically. Hot off the printer. Hello, Bob Santa. I'll have to, you'll get it from Connor. There's one for Megan. There's one for you. NATISE. And one for you. Oh, you want one, Dawn? Sure. We'll marry you. Okay, well, I'm not really going to address the issue of, oh, I want the project to be in the Village of Walden, because, fine, it should be in the Village of Walden, why not? We're a residential community, and as the other board members said, we really do value our seniors. The seniors really give you the barometer of what's going on in a community. If the senior can afford to stay in their community and in their house, then you know you're doing something right. And that's how I felt when I was on the village board from 2005 to 2009, and I still feel that way today. So, in fact, this letter that I'm giving you, and I don't have to go over the whole thing, you're going to read it. It is about shifting the tax burden to the rest of the residents, and in particular to the seniors who already live in the Village of Walden, who own their own homes. But in fact, as I was working on this and I thought about it more, it even affects seniors who are tenants more than homeowners, because a landlord doesn't get a tax exemption on a rental property. So you pass that tax, the full tax burden, onto your tenant. And if the tenant is a senior, then they're really getting hit hard, much harder than a homeowner. Because a homeowner, if you have just income adjustments, you get senior adjustments, veterans adjustments, and different things that help you to stay in your own home. And that's what it's all about. The town of Montgomery, for the past 15 years, has funded the Town of Montgomery Seniors Independence Project. The town of Montgomery has taken a philosophical position on aging in place. And this is a very important issue. Every year, its project is funded. We help the seniors with rides, with doctor's visits. One of our volunteers is Brenda Adams, right here. I've been on that committee since it started. You don't want to be forcing seniors out. You want them to stay in their own home if possible. It's the best solution. But it's only possible, and believe me, I do it, it's a tightrope. It's only possible if you can afford the taxes, which of course we know go up every year because our expenses, municipal expenses go up. If you can afford the taxes to stay in your home. So this is just a little scenario that I got from the assessor's office, and basically, based on the cost of the project at $14.8 million, if the project existed today, by some miracle, a high assessment for that project would be about 8.3 mil. A low assessment would be 4.8, factoring in all the things that the assessor can do, profitability and unoccupied units and blah, blah, blah. They have a whole scenario that they work through. Based on today's village tax rate that we paid this year, the high assessment would yield $155,540 in village taxes. So I'm just addressing this as a village resident. The low assessment would yield $90,381. That's a big difference from $23,565.30 in pilot money a year. It's actually $66,816 difference. I think that you really have to take that into account for the village taxpayers, because then that gets redistributed to everybody, and it gets redistributed with the heaviest burden, especially onto seniors who are on fixed income. The chart at the back gives you, from the Village of Walden's comprehensive plan, owner-occupied units, 1,443. Most recent information was 2016, because of the census records aren't out yet. And that's about 20% of those are senior-owned and occupied. So I know that, Connor, you had said to me, oh, well, they're only saying, 8% of the village population is seniors, but it's not how many seniors, it's how many taxable units are owned by seniors. And that's where the impact is. So then clearly 20% of those units, and then I don't even know what the rentals would be, because there's seniors in rentals. So I'm asking you to vote no on this pilot, along with my board members who represent me. I am on the village zoning board, so this thing goes out.
No matters.
That was your 5 minutes. That was partly a joke. Did you have more to say?
No, just that I would like you to vote no on this application.
We got it, thank you.
Thank you.
Um,
That was a good joke, Jeff.
Yeah, do you like that?
Yeah.
Oh, we have a question from Tom Jones for you, Mary Ellen. Go ahead, Tom.
So, Ms. Matisse, thank you for this, I appreciate it. One is more of a statement and one's a question, because I just want to be clear, as we talk about pilots, especially in a public forum, that it's clear that, a pilot isn't a reduction in current tax revenue. We're talking about creating new tax revenues, right? So it's newer amounts, lesser amounts. So when we talk about creating a deficit, we're not actually creating a deficit, it's just a reduction in the maximum potential of tax revenue. And that's not towards you, it's just more toward, because I hear a lot of confusion in conversations with people what pilots really are. The question I have though is, when you look at an assessment like this, which I think is extremely useful, beneficial, do we have an estimate of the cost of the project to the Village of Walden?
Well, that you have to get from the manager.
Because that's the apples to apples comparison. When
Yes.
we look at the tax revenue generated versus the actual cost burden, as you were talking about infrastructure and so on.
Right.
Because that would be a great factual point just to references.
That has to come from the village manager and from the treasurer. In fact, maybe Brenda, would you want to say anything in relation to that? Because Brenda has had some past experience with that. Yeah, I mean, I've used the word deficit, but I understand that it's going forward. And in fact, it's not a loss, it's just that we're not gonna get those additional monies.
Not maximizing potential.
Yeah,
Understand.
exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
And in here too, I mean, my understanding would be, if the village tax rate, the village isn't in the business of making money, no municipality is. It's against the law. So you can only tax the public to the point of what you need to fulfill your budget. Yeah, and you have a little reserve, but you're not supposed to be just hoarding this extra money. It's not like a private person, you're saving your money for the future. So that project should be supplying the money to the village that is needed to service it, just like my house should be,
Yes.
and other people's houses. So it's, when they're not doing that because the pilot is so much less than what the anticipated revenues should be from taxation, then it has to be spread to everybody else. And then you're spreading it to the weakest link, which is the 20% of homeowners who are seniors and they're on fixed incomes. And yes, I could not afford to rent one of these apartments. It would be beyond what I get monthly.
Yeah, and I mean, that's been my other personal question around this too, is even, you know, referencing Mayor Ramos, the fact that we're for this project, but, you know, the rents are too high. So,
Well, but they're not too high for other people. They're too high for me. So I wouldn't live there. I want to stay in my own home. That's the most important thing to me.
We already have Marion, we need new people.
Excuse me?
We already have Marion, we need new people.
with new people as opposed to taking care of the seniors within our community, right? And so I think that's what.
55 is not a senior.
No, but I'm saying, in other words, the people who are already in our community are the 20% who own their own homes.
Right.
And even some of the renters who are seniors. Yeah, because then if you put the burden on me, the first person, if I can't afford to stay there, the first person or the postcard that I get that says, I will buy your house for cash no matter what condition. And the prices are high right now.
Thank you, Mary Ellen. You okay, Tom?
Yes, thank you.
Who else? Ma'am, your name?
Brenda Adams,
Brenda Adams?
ADAMS, I'll make it easy. Okay. I won't restate a lot of the things that's already been said. I do agree with the village manager. I was on the village board of trustees at the time that we did jump through hoops to get this project going because of the tax money. I think that most of us, or at least I can say for myself, I wasn't sure how many people in the village would be able to afford the price of $1,700 plus utilities. But I did see that there may be people coming in from out of town, people who have bought homes around here that want to bring their parents here to live closer, to move them from an apartment in New York City, moving to an apartment here is like living in the country. So I can see the value of the project, and I'm totally for the project. And like everybody else that spoke, I have been against the pilot. Now, one of the things I'd like to mention is that when the project starts, you would think that there would be no cost to the village, but there will be, because our Department of Public Works and Water and Sewer superintendent, he's gonna have to be watching this. He's gonna have to be, they may be doing the building of putting in the pipes, doing all of that kind of work, but he's gonna have to be on top of it to make sure that the pipes are done properly, that they connect to our connections for water and sewer, and that's gonna take him away from the DPW and away from his other duties, so that's a cost. The village has been begging the state to work on our Route 52 and 208. Anybody who drives through Walden knows that before they just patched it, you could see the trolley tracks on Route 52 going under the red light. They have committed to doing that shortly, I guess within the next year or so. John could say probably more accurate than me. But when these trucks start coming in, they're gonna tear up something we've been waiting for years. That's gonna be a cost to the village too, because then we'll either have to beg them and spend time to repair it, or we will have to repair it ourselves, which they don't like us to do because it's a state road. The apartments are gonna require someone with a car, because there's only one small deli on the west side of Walden which would sell perishable goods such as eggs, milk, bread, that type of thing. The grocery store is at the bottom of the hill. Some of the younger people, 55, might be able to walk back up that hill with a bag of groceries, but not everybody can. So they're gonna either need a vehicle, they're gonna need to pay for the taxi service, they're going to need the senior bus, which is the town of Montgomery expense, or they're gonna need Tomsic, which I drive for Tomsic and I see the need the seniors have for getting around this area, being rural, and to get to stores and to doctor's appointments. One of the other things that I'd like to mention is that once the project gets started, you say the pilot won't cost us money because it's going to be more money coming in. One of the things that is largest in the Village of Walden budget is the police department. Seniors use the police, not just because there's violence or crime or anything like that, but I know from experience, when you call 911 because there's a medical emergency, and more seniors have medical emergencies than anybody, when you call 911, the first one there is the Walden Police, and they stay. They are the last ones there to leave. That ties up officers. I don't know, these are all speculation of what could happen, but it is a cost to the village that would continue through all of, our taxes would go up, and then we would be paying for that. I, like Mary Ellen, I'm a senior that lives in my own house and can afford to be there, thankfully, and would not want to live in an apartment, but there are people who will and need to, but I don't want to pay for them to be in their apartment. I don't mind paying my fair share, but I don't want to pay for them. So I don't blame these people for asking you for all this extra stuff, because they're in the business of making a profit. And that's what they do, and I don't blame them. You try to do the best you can and make as most money as you can. But it's up to you if you feel that helping them make a profit hurts the people in the village of Walden, and also in the town of Montgomery, because the town taxes are going to have to cover certain things. I know you contribute to Thompson. The village library is looking for, always in need of money. I don't know if this reduces their portion of the tax as well, but that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Brenda. Who else would like to speak tonight? Don Berger?
Don Berger, Village of Montgomery, and I represent residents protecting Montgomery. You know, this is a hard one. I don't know really truly where I stand on this one. We residents protecting Montgomery, as always said, we have a huge need for senior housing around here in all three villages and the town. So we are very much in favor of this project. Mr. Jones, you did bring up at previous meetings the rent. And what I didn't hear was any real follow-up to your question. So I did some research. So I went to two, in particular, senior housing developments, one in Maybrook, one in the village of Montgomery. And the one in Maybrook is $1,300, give or take. And the one in the village of Montgomery has a sliding scale, starting at $1,000, going up to $1,300. So the problem is $1,700. That's an awful lot of money. I don't know if any of the board members here, or if Connor or anybody did any research for all the follow-up senior centers or senior housing to find out what the average rate is in this township. I think that would be a good thing to do moving forward before you ever make a decision. So, you know, you have this $1,700. I know the applicant said, well, there's the amenities. Well, benches, a swing set and all that, that's not, you know, too much of an amenity to me. They all have that sort of thing. They all have grass. They all have areas you could sit and read. They all have little centers within the buildings where they could congregate, all right? So I don't remember much of what the applicant has said that is surpassing that to get you up to $1,700. I think that's a major consideration here. But more importantly, when I'm saying I'm don't know where I'm at with this here, is the pilot. You know, I've been before this IDA board many, many times against pilots. This one in particular, I think I'm against the pilot, but I think that there's compromise, and I'm wondering whether compromise can be made. And I did talk to Connor a couple times about this, and I believe I did mention it to the applicant just just talk. Nothing concrete, but why or can this board make a decision if you choose to have a pilot to have them pay the Village of Walden taxes? And they could have a pilot, you know, based on the mortgage and sales and town of Montgomery. And as far as I'm concerned, who cares about Valley Central? I've spoken up for years for Valley Central, and he still won't come here. So the hell with Valley Central. Is that a good one, Jeff? We're good with that. You know, I mean, they don't speak for themselves, so I'm not going to speak for them anymore. I'm tired of Valley Central. But why can't we do that? Is that something that can be done? Make Walden happy and make the applicants happy. I'm sure if you guys sit down in a room, if that's legal, I don't know, that it should be something that could be thought about. And I think going away, everybody would be happy and would have some senior housing in the Village of Walden. Thanks.
Thank you, Don. Becky?
Yes, sir. Becky Pearson, Walden.
Just some thoughts. I watched the last idea meeting on the. I'm against the pilot. I think that if you want to finance the project, go ahead. But to have the pilot, I think you can do one of the other. You can do either both or one. If you finance the project, great, finance it. But do you have to give the pilot where they're going to be not paying taxes for the many years? I get what you're saying, but I still think everybody had good points here that it is going to affect us whether you don't think it is or not. It will affect us seniors. I'm a senior now. I can't help it. I'm getting older. So I think that some of the issues that plague us are our infrastructure, and as Brenda said, that we will be working on that infrastructure through our DPW and spending more money on our police. As I came here today, I just saw 2 police cars in the Village of Walden across from me at Millspaw Furniture where I work, and they were there was an ambulance out there at the senior place across, so 2 cop cars and an ambulance. And again, that is a service through the town and the village. So the town has the ambulance, that's going to be affected as well. So that tax dollars, and we can't even keep the ambulance in our sites right now, it's a struggle. So we're trying to keep the ambulance within the town of Montgomery. We don't know if that's going to happen, what the town is going to do. But that funding, those tax dollars will help with that revenue for all of us. When I was mayor, this developer, the same developer that came before the board originally and has sold it since, so the developer came before. I don't even know if he bought the property to begin with and then to sell it, but I don't know that for the gist of it. I know that he came before the board to get the approvals, and now this other developer owns it. So the previous developer, the one who got the approvals from the board, had another project across the street when I was mayor. It was a smaller senior development. He got state funding, so he had to build it a certain way, and the planning board did everything they need to do to make it senior, X amount of parking, the same whatever seniors have. They don't have the outdoor amenities, it's just really more senior apartments. He came to the board after he built the project. Well, actually, he had to sell that project because it fell under, he couldn't finish the project, so he sold that. But then he came back to ask for a relief for the amount of what it was being rented for, which was $1,400, I believe, at that time. And that was probably 15 years ago, 10, 15 years ago. And at that time, people couldn't afford to live there. He couldn't rent them out for $1,400. So I agree that the seniors in our village, in our town, don't have the funding to pay for $1,700. Maybe they're coming from elsewhere, that's great. But again, I would not want to live there. I wouldn't want to pay $1,700 for that little apartment, and the amenities aren't anything great. So I think the developer kind of snowed over the board in the beginning because he was giving them, this is what's going to happen, and we're going to do this, we're going to pay taxes, and then he goes and sells it. So I find that irrepresentable. I can't stand it when that happens because I think he's really trying to pull the wool over their eyes, and he did, as far as I'm concerned. So hopefully this board will take in consideration. If you want to fund the project, go ahead. The pilot for the tax purposes would not benefit the Village of Walden. What else do I have? I think that's it. So just knowing that the services that we supply to all of our residents is important, and those tax dollars that come in, everything is penny to penny. You're talking about infrastructure and sewer plants and DEC consent orders and things that have to happen that sometimes we can't get to fix because we don't have the funds for that. So anything that they want to build would be beneficial to the village. Seniors are beneficial to the village. Is it going to be walkable? I don't know. But I think we can work it out and not do the pilot. And if you want to fund their project and loan them the money, hopefully you'll get that money back. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Becky. Mary Ellen,
Can I just,
quickly, please. I don't want to cover anybody
no,
else.
this
who
is
might
very,
want-
very short. It's just in addition to what Becky said, with the project across the street, then they came back and they asked for it to not be a senior project anymore.
Right.
So now, if you fund this project with a pilot, is it based on it being a senior project, 55 and older? And then what if in a year or two they come to the Village of Walden board, because they might not come to you, and say, oh, we don't want, because he went to the Village of Walden board and said, we don't want this to be a senior project anymore, and the village gave in. So then what happens? They've got a pilot based on senior units, and are they senior units anymore?
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak tonight?
Real quick, Jeff? Real
Yes, Don?
I know that the IDA kind of went to the state controller's office. Could you let the audience know what the decision of the state controller's office was?
Yes, so we reached out to the ABO, who suggested we reach out to the Attorney General and the Comptroller's office. All this correspondence is posted on our website, by the way. The Attorney General referred us to the Comptroller, and now we await comment from the Comptroller. And for reference, the Comptroller currently has a 1985 opinion that puts this decision in the hands of the decision-making locality. So just for reference, if anyone wants to look that up. But we currently await correspondence from the Comptroller.
And, yes, Michelle?
Chairman Chris, if there's no further comments, could I just respond to some of the questions and concerns?
We have some people on the line,
Okay.
but I'll keep that in mind.
Thank you.
Connor, take it away.
If anyone's on the line and wishes to comment regarding Walden Construction Enterprise, please state your name.
Can you tell if anyone called in?
Is anyone there that would wish to speak on Walden Construction Enterprise?
We're not hearing anybody on the call-in line. Or just ask once more for any other comments tonight. Hearing no other or seeing no other requests for comment. Michelle, did you have some responses?
And again, if anything that I say opens this to further comment, certainly from the applicant's perspective, we have no objection to speakers speaking further. But I think there's some points of clarification that are worth mentioning. First, all of us, I think, that are here this evening, and I appreciate the representation from the village. It's very evident that their leaders care about the future of the village and care about having adequate revenue to support the services for their residents, and we certainly appreciate that concern. In terms of this particular project, as outlined in our application, in order to have the project be viable and sustainable, and the board well knows this, but the applicant is facing annual debt service of approximately $900,000 per year. And as we've stated in previous meetings, that in particular is one of the concerns that causes us to present the application. With that in mind, I will say that the clients and the developers for this project, they are very flexible in terms of their analysis, and certainly we try to stay, when we present our application, within the confines of your uniform tax exemption policy, but that's not to say that there's an unwillingness on their part for compromise, as has been suggested by some of the speakers this evening. And our first, and I think most substantial, attempt at compromise, it was our affordability offer with respect to not raising rents for residents of the village of Walden and the town of Montgomery beyond 30% of the median income for the village of Walden. And I'll tell you, and we accounted also for an allotment of approximately $150 monthly in utilities. So if I could dive down a little bit and tell you how we're looking at that calculation, I think it may be helpful in terms of looking at the affordability. The U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development defines affordable housing as rental housing that does not exceed for the rent more than 30% of the income, with utilities included. And so we looked at various age brackets because of course a younger population may have more income. And we looked at, by census data, the brackets that included 45 to 65-year-olds and then 65 plus, both in the town of Montgomery and the village of Walden. And when you look at those age brackets, there's a wide range. For the eldest population in the village of Walden, their income, as would be expected, is the lowest. It's approximately $64,000 annually. When you look at 45 to 65-year-olds in the town of Montgomery, their income is the highest at approximately $104,000 median income annually. When you look at the village of Walden, 45 to 65-year-olds, their median income is $84,000. And then the elder population, town of Montgomery, 65 plus, they are in the $70,000 range. And so again, using that range from the demographics that this project would include of $64,000 annually to $84,000 annually, $104,000 annually, the $84,000, which is the median income for the village of Walden, fell squarely in the middle. And so given that that is in fact the median income for the village of Walden, and it fell squarely within that range as the average income, it seemed appropriate to use that for this uniform calculation. And again, it was a first attempt by the applicant to offer affordability to residents. And I understand that the price point of $1,700 per month may seem high, but you have to keep in mind that there are only 68 apartment units, not including the one caretaker's unit, that would be available for rent. And as our expert said, Dr. Cynthia Falk in her report, when you add supply to the market, you help the overall price point for rental units across the market. So by adding the 68 units, although it may not be affordable to everyone and only affordable to some, by increasing your supply, you're helping to bring down the overall cost. And again, Dr. Fox speaks to that in her report. And as I stated, Richard Lampert, who's here with me this evening, could speak to that further, either at the public hearing or the regular meeting. I understand that one of the predominant concerns of the village is with respect to water and sewer infrastructure. And I think in reviewing the village board minutes and listening to the comments this evening, I think that it's worth clarifying. It may be realized, but nonetheless, I think it's worth stating that in terms of special assessments, the full assessed value of the building would be, there was no abatement with respect to a special assessment for water or sewer improvements. Likewise, if there's connection fees that are part of the village's schedule, those have to be paid. Water and sewer rents have to be paid in full for the 69 units. With respect to special districts, fire district, library district, again, there's no abatement that's allowable. Those fire district, they would be based upon the full assessed value. In terms of looking at the assessed value, we used, and I think one of the speakers, her analysis was correct, that 4.8 million may be the base, and that's what we used based upon the square footage, the price per square foot for the apartment complex across the street. Using that price per square foot, we did come up with a full assessed value of 4.8 million, again, on which those special assessments would be based. And where our number decreases is because of the equalization rate, the 56% equalization rate. And so that's why you see, instead of 40-some thousand owed to the village, the 28,000 as the existing taxes. It's because of the equalization rate. It's not because we're trying to lowball the village. As I said, our affordability offer was a first attempt to try to meet the concerns of the board, and we think that it meets the definition of affordable housing that's given by the United States Department of Housing and Development. We understand that it's not attainable for every resident, but again, it's an issue of supply and demand. We're increasing the supply, and there's only 68 units available. I'm sorry, I just wanted to make sure that I covered. Yes, in terms of the pilot, payments that would be made, plus the existing land payments, plus those taxes that are exempt from abatement over the 10-year pilot. Again, just using the base assessment that we used, the total amount of pilot payments would, according to our estimated calculations, would be $929,355. So again, just to eliminate any misconception that the project would not be paying any taxes to the taxing jurisdiction, which seemed to be communicated in some of the board's minutes, that's absolutely not true. Even with the base assessment, we'd be paying close to $1 million over the 10 years. And that's a considerable increase from the current amount that's being paid. For the village alone, if you were, again, to remain with the existing pilot structure, you increase their revenue by 8 times what it presently is. And again, I'm not opposed to, and I don't think my clients would be opposed to some type of carve-out for the village if that's where the onus falls and the board thinks that that's appropriate. We put forward before you what is standard under your uniform tax exemption policy, but we're certainly open to suggestion and further discussion. I do think that it's worthwhile, perhaps at the regular meeting, to take the opportunity to have those discussions. I know that, with the current scrutiny that IDAs are under, there is some reluctance, understandably, to be having off-the-record conversations. So despite the formality and the onus that places on all of us, I think that it is useful. Many of the village representatives are here, and we're certainly open to further suggestion as to what would be a better model for them and more workable for the village. So we're certainly not ruling out that possibility. We're trying to respond to your concerns as they are presented to us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michelle. Do board members have any comments for the public hearing? Matt?
So, and this is for the attorney. David. I listening to the comments from the public, from the village manager and the village mayor. It seems a couple of years ago you guys met and discussed this project. They feel that what's happening today is not what was discussed a couple of years.
Sure. So what is common, what I've seen as IDA counsel to many applicants and companies, is the structure that you are now seeing. It's not particular to this transaction, and there's nothing that's being attempted here that is not standard otherwise in sort of a multi-million-dollar development, which is the initial applicant to the village. It's not unusual, and I'm not speaking specifically to this applicant, but it's not unusual for them to not have the capital to carry the project to completion. So they may enter into contract, they may obtain the permitting, and they're not engaging in anything that is, as I said, unusual. But they obtain the permitting, and then they often assign their rights to a developer who does have more capital to, again, fund debt service of $900,000 per year that they may not have the capital to fund. And so in terms of their representations, and I think this brings up an important point that the mayor and the manager raised with respect to the village, which is there is a full intention and understanding by my clients, the current developers, that they will adhere to all of the conditions that the village has put forth within the approving resolutions by their planning board, by their zoning board of appeals, and through their environmental review process. And in terms of I cannot speak to, because I do not represent and have not represented those that appeared before the village boards. As I said, they transfer to assign their interest as is common to a developer with more capital to fund the project. But that being said, again, if there are representations, my clients, I think that they were, in my opinion, in dealing with many developers, they were incredibly generous in making the affordability offer that they did. And I think Mr. Lampert can speak more directly. As the village has acknowledged, there is a lack of supply, and it's a critical lack of supply. And when you have that situation, then rents can be driven up. And again, Mr. Lampert can speak much more eloquently to this than I can. But rents are going to be driven up by that situation because you have a scarcity. And so if there's only a handful of apartments on the market, the price point becomes whatever the developer is willing to wait for and ask. And so if you have that type of situation and you do not have this affordability offer in place, the board's prior concerns are legitimate. If there's not financial assistance and there's not a framework and lease by this IDA, then that leaves this to the market to determine what those rents will be. And as Dr. Faka said, when you have a lack of supply, that means that the rents are going skyward. So I can't speak to their representations, but I can tell you that if the board feels that there was a reliance upon the former applicant to the village, their representations, and therefore it's not appropriate to be granting, at least the portion of the pilot that would be with respect to the village revenue, then we're open to the board carving that portion out. That portion for my client over the 10 years represents a savings of $253,593. They're paying $900,000 in debt service a year. That particular portion that the village may need to rely upon, if they want that portion, we're willing to make compromise. We're not going to let that stand in the way of the project going forward. What we do have to assure is that, if we're presenting this affordability offer, they need to meet their debt service. And so all of us, as I said at the beginning, want this to be viable and sustainable because it does no good to the village nor to my clients to have a defunct building that's not operational because they can't meet debt service. So we're asking for some help. I think most importantly to my clients is probably the sales and use tax exemption because they're facing that cost up front. Your mortgage recording tax exemption, it almost equates to the agency's fee. So it almost cancels out what we owe to the agency for the oversight that you perform and the services that you provide throughout the term of any lease. So really, what's of highest priority to them is their sales and use tax exemption. The mortgage recording tax exemption for us would offset the agency's fee. Beyond that, it would be helpful to have some relief from the pilot. Again, they are making their payments over the course of the pilot will be $929,355 at the base assessed value. If the assessed value goes up, in your cost-benefit analysis, for instance, you have the assessed value at $12 million. If that's the assessed value, they will be paying $3 million over the term of the pilot. So to the extent that the board can afford them some relief to make this affordable to residents, we're willing to work with those numbers. Again, in this political climate, I don't know what the best forum to do that is, whether it's at an open meeting like this, whether it's a meeting with the village and IDA representatives, but we're open to suggestion. My clients, they are facing a time crunch, and they would like to take advantage of the rest of what's left of the season before the snowfall. So that is also very important to us.
Thank you. Michelle. Tom?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to talk real quickly on this. Maybe it's redefining the public benefit here, because I think that, at least from my perspective, maybe it's a misnomer to call this affordable housing for seniors. And if we're talking about, supply and demand, it may be hitting the wrong demographic. I think the public benefit here probably has to do with the economic impact that a project like this could have on the village, and I think that's what needs to be considered by everybody, and whether or not it makes sense. Like, how much additional revenue outside is this project that's being driven into the village? How many more dollars are being spent? Just based on what I know in my history, my profession, I would assume the far majority of new residents will be new residents in these, coming from outside the village, not necessarily supplying affordable housing to existing elderly that need it within the village. So I think just that reframing of what the public benefit is really important. So there's the disconnect between, the sides.
Maybe to that point, Mr. Lampert, would you like the opportunity to just make any remarks on?
Yes, I would. First, I'd like to compliment the town for two things. When we looked at Rockland, we looked at Orange. you're one of the few towns that have a full array of senior housing. You have 202, 515. You have 2 levels of tax credit. You have Evergreen, which is a low of 50%. You have Jones property at 60%. And you have Greystone, which is market. No other towns have that. I mean, you need a lot more. And the other thing I was impressed with the village, when they to make it one building, that is the way for years we go. They're pushing senior one building, not multiple buildings. So I do compliment you there. It's forward thinking. And I can show you. Getting back to rents and everything else, the tax credit deals and 515s get tons of government subsidy, 1% mortgages, millions, tens of millions of tax credits. So when you look at 1,300, 1,400, 1,100, I mean, and the 515s, you can pay $100 in taxes, in rent. So put that aside. We're talking strictly market, we're directed at homeowners, okay? Senior rentals in the projects, actually not in the project, senior rentals, affordable, people that are 55, start at 70. When you go into the market, it's really people moving out of their, forced to move out of their houses, adjustments. This project has 3 superior things, which I gotta bring up, okay? It's all 2-bedroom, okay? Which is what people, the owners want, except for the one. It has 2 bathrooms, okay? Now, we did a lot of work on bathrooms, as strange as it may seem. We talked to the developer in putting in a large walk-in shower. We also found out, by doing our studies and everything else, that they wanted a bench. And we tried to figure out what was it, handicap? No, it was because the women wanted to shave their legs. We thought that was interesting. But the second thing is 50 of the units are gonna have both a walk-in shower and a walk-in tub. That's so critical, where you can keep the family unit together. When older, we're talking 70, 80 years old with money. Keep them out of assisted living, keep them out of that. You could be saving families $50,000 a year. You wanna spend $6,000? You keep that family together, that unit, that family unit, which male and female, but I won't get into that, the 2 people unit together, you save a fortune. These people will save a fortune. You're able to function and everything else. One big thing about market rate and these little higher income is that they tend to eat out. So there's a big factor of the people eating at restaurants, generally over 75, incomes over 70,000 and everything else. That's documented. The other, when we looked at that, rents, okay? Greystone sells a 2-bedroom with 1 bath, and the design is a little bit above tax credit. I got involved in Greystone with Baruch Marketplace, not phase 1, but phase 2. And I convinced them they had to put in walk-in showers, that was a problem. And I convinced them to put in all the 2 bedrooms, because that was the market. And they can confirm that with him. And interesting discussions, but going on. Then they're paying between $1,700 to $1,800 plus utilities. Varies the unit, phase 1, phase 2, okay? We're looking at a superior unit, okay? Our rents are around $2,000, beginning, a little bit less than like $1,900 to $2,000, which is below market when you adjust everything, the 2 bedrooms. Lakeshore, which is 104 units, Newburgh, just opened up, okay? I went there, beautiful, except for one thing. They have steel tubs to walk in, no walk-in showers. That's why they're 30% occupied. Watch out what I say, oops. That market, they missed the market. You're right on the market. You're fully handicapped. You're directed at your prime point. I would say quite a few of your residents, that 75, 80, will look at this project. Especially the B units, which have the walk-in shower and the walk-in tub. Because you can keep that family together. You do not have to spend a lot of money on assisted living, or assisted living, which is anywhere from $6,000 to $12,000 in the Hudson Valley and the world.
Mr. Lambert, are you about to wrap up here? I think we got the general idea of your comments. They're very valuable.
And just supply and demand. One of the things you gotta look at in the town, you're between 75 to 95 are gonna have a huge increase in population, those cohorts. And this project is directed for that. That's gonna happen in the next 5 years. It's gonna happen for the entire county. So you're building a project aimed at this exploding population.
Good point. Thank you, Mr. Lambert. John Ravella.
May I make a statement?
Yes, why don't you come up, please?
Just wanted to clarify a couple of things I heard from the rebuttal from the applicant's attorney. I just want to make sure we're clear, this is not an affordable housing project, as noted in the public hearing notice. It's a market rate housing project. It's never the intention of the village, nor the applicant since the inception, to make this an affordable housing project. I'm not sure why it's in the conversation. The applicant's attorney made reference to the median incomes in the town, how they're higher than in the village. Well, that's why we want market rate, so we can increase that median income in our village. I think we all appreciate that. The debt service that was mentioned, that's not our hardship, that's not the village's burden. That's something the applicant should realize when they looked at the project and that they wanted to develop there. Hopefully they can negotiate with a bank for a better rate and pay less debt service. If you're charging rent of $1,700 a month for each unit, that's over $1.3 million on $900,000 debt service. So you're still making money and getting the benefit and the write-offs from that debt service. Just to clarify, there are no special assessment districts in the village. There's a fire district that overlays in the village and a library that overlays in the village, but there's no special assessment districts. Thanks.
Thanks, John. I'm going to ask our council to.
Could I just ask one question?
Yeah, I want to be careful, John. We're taking information. We don't begin a expensive debate here.
The only question I have is, the rents you propose, how long would they stay at that rate?
Chairman Chrisman.
Briefly, please.
So the affordability offer is the submission that we made in July. It's posted to the agency's website, and it explains in there that it would be during the term that the property is under lease with the IDA, which I think practically makes sense. So if you were to give the pilot, it would be during the 10-year pilot.
Good, John. I'd like to ask council to weigh in. I think the board has taken a lot of valuable information in from the public tonight, and I thank you all for being here and providing that comment. I can assure you we're going to take your comments very seriously. I had suggested in my opening comments that we leave a 10-day written comment period after we close the comment session tonight. Rick, would you weigh in, please?
Sure, Ed. As the chairman stated, that there will be the public hearing will be closed today. There will be a 10-day public comment period where 10 days from today, during that time frame, people can submit written comments to the IDA. The board, after closing the public hearing, will not take any further action on this application this evening. They will take into consideration all of the comments made, and they will deliberate further in a public forum, an open meeting, at a later meeting of the IDA, in which they will also take up their required seeker review of this project.
Thank you, Rick. With that, I would suggest the board consider closing the public hearing, allowing a 10-day written period from today's date, and I would ask for that motion to be considered by a board member.
I make that motion.
Thank you, John. Is there a second to that motion?
10 business days?
Should it
Calendar
be?
days.
Usually it's calendar days.
Second the motion.
Okay, and for clarification, that would be 10 calendar days to accept further public comment. Any other discussion on the motion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And we have an aye from Bob as well on the video. I'm an aye. Everybody's in favor. Is anybody opposed? So we have 5 in favor, nobody in opposition. The public hearing for tonight is closed. Thank you all for coming out, and stay tuned. Rick, I know you're on a schedule.
I have to leave now to
Oh.
attend a prior meeting.
Okay, I think we're in good shape. We'll undertake the policy change later, but you have that proposed, and we'll entertain the Cardinal Health expansion presentation. Next on our agenda, Charlie Pizidlo, I think, is in the audience. Charlie, welcome. Thanks a lot, Rick.
Mr. Golden's leaving, I hope it's something I didn't say.
To get to one of your favorite planning boards.
Well, I know where you're going, yes, I know. Yes, thank you. Good evening, board members. I'm Charlie Pizidlo, I'm outside counsel for Cardinal Health. Also in attendance here is probably the mystery person that's on the phone line, Kyle Kessenring, who's with Cardinal. He's out in Ohio listening in, so I was almost going to stand and say that's probably who's on the phone, but anyway, so.
Yeah.
By way of a quick introduction, Cardinal has an existing facility in the town that I'm sure you're all aware of, located at 500 Neelytown Road. That facility is part of a project that was approved back in 1991-92. It was originally approved for a 1.1 million square foot warehouse distribution facility. It was done under Allegiance Healthcare, I think, at the time. Cardinal took over that facility in 92, thereabouts, and have been operating there since then. Of that 1.1 million that was previously, had a previous site plan approval, they built only about 600,000 square feet of the project. We are currently proposing a 310,000, square foot addition. What Cardinal describes in their terminology as a replenishment center. And basically what that does is that they currently fill orders for certain medical equipment through a facility out in Chicago, Illinois. When those orders are placed by local customers in the Northeast region here, that material is moved from Chicago, brought to this facility, the current facility in Montgomery, and pushed through the facility as quickly as possible. That creates a long delay in getting, or at least what we feel is a long delay in getting that equipment to the actual customers. By building this facility, the 310,000 square foot facility, that material would be staged here. It would be included, warehoused here, be able to be distributed out of the facility at a much quicker rate, decreasing that waiting time for the customers dramatically. So currently the facility right now employs about 241 employees. With this addition, there'd be an additional 60 employees at the facility. So it's quite a substantial increase. As I said, the building's about 310,000 square feet. In addition, there's additions to the parking lot and rearranging of the accessway, internal accessway in the application. So there may be about 400,000 square foot of space used in this project, but the building itself 310,000 square feet. Has a value that we figure around $24 million in cost for the project. We're in front of the planning board right now, working our way through the planning board. We're hopeful to be able to break ground on this facility this year, if at all possible. Again, it's a critical need for the company to try to get it up and running as quickly as we can. But economics is a big factor involved in this. So I'll try to keep it short. That's basically the presentation. The application's been turned in. I think we have a complete application. As far as the details of the site plan itself, we actually attached a copy of the site plan application, or the site plan drawings to the back of that. They're an 8.5 by 11 size. If the board wants something bigger, we certainly can get you an electronic copy of that, or actual full-size prints if need be. So.
One question I have, did the project originally receive any tax abatements?
I don't know, Jeff, offhand. If it did, they're certainly no longer in place right now. The current project right now pays about 1.5 and change million in taxes right now. It's shown on the county as having an assessed value of 28.75 million. Again, that's assessed value. You have to factor in the equalization rate to know what the real market value of it is right now. So they do currently pay a little over $1.5 million in taxes right now.
And Mr. Chairman, looking through our records, I find no record of the Montgomery IDA granting any abatements, nor the Orange County IDA. And then speaking to the town assessor, he revealed that it could be just a 485B, but no local industrial development agency inside.
Right, but more likely than not, that's probably what happened initially when the project was constructed. Right.
And then 1980, you mentioned?
Yeah, it goes back a long way, yes.
Questions, comments, board?
And you're just asking for a pilot on the expansion?
Just on the expansion. Thank you. Yes, just be clear about that. We're talking about a pilot on the expansion project, not on the existing building.
Thank you. 2 questions. Just first, of the current employee base, what percentage of that are employees, are residents of the town?
Offhand, I don't know. We can get you that information. It's I don't want to get to the number. We will get you that exact information. We do have that. So
that'd be great. And then just any preliminary estimates of the economic impact?
Well, yes. Overall, the facility itself, besides the construction jobs associated with it, we'll be able to maintain the distribution facilities that go back and forth through there, the trucking companies that come in and out, the 60 additional employees that are there, that they all have multiplier effects. So we think it's a very positive project. So it's in a piece of property that's zoned for this. It's on Neely Town Road. It's a location of not only their existing facility but also several other ones similar to it. So.
And any estimate on the additional truck traffic expected from the expansion?
Strangely enough, very little additional because this material moves through there right now. So it is kind of a strange statement to say you're going to build a 300,000 square foot building. How do you not have increased traffic? There'll be some, but not a lot, because as I said, the material already moves through the building right now. So.
Thank you.
I know we're near town of Hamptonburg boundary. This expansion is fully in the town of Montgomery.
This expansion is fully in the town of Montgomery. It is, just to quickly physically describe it, if you drive by it on Neely Town Road, you see the front of the building that faces Neely Town Road, the expansion will come out from that building towards Neely Town Road.
Oh, okay. I was trying to figure that out.
Yeah, it's hard to tell sometimes from the drawings, because what's there and what's not there, but clearly it'll come out from that building slightly offset from the footprint of the existing building. So.
Did you have a question?
So,
Matt,
you said 60 new jobs?
60, yes.
Because of the expansion, and what would them jobs be paying? Sorry.
We listed in our application, they're, again, quote exactly from the application.
Who's in the middle there?
Yeah.
Page 4, I believe.
There's professional or managerial 80 to 260.
Well, we're stating average estimate annual salary, 53,000.
Okay. I'm on there on page, yep.
With a range of 53,000 to 260,000. Obviously, that's one person.
Yeah.
So, yes.
Any other questions, comments for Charlie? The applicant has asked, we've discussed with council, consideration to schedule the public hearing for September 14th at our next IDA board meeting. I would suggest we consider a motion to do that at 1 o'clock, which is the time that meeting is scheduled to start.
You need a motion, Chair?
If you would care to make it, please. Motion by Matt.
Second.
Second by John Dixon to schedule the public hearing for this application, Cardinal Health, at 1 p.m. September 14th is the correct date, right, Connor?
That's right.
Any other comments or discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Connor's our new counsel, he's suggesting a roll call. John Dixon, how do you vote? That's it.
Yes.
Matt Stoddard?
Yes.
Bob Santo, how do you vote on the public hearing? Yes, okay. Tom Jones?
Yes.
I'm in favor, so we have 5 in favor, nobody against. So that public hearing is scheduled.
Very good. See you on the 14th. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. Okay.
Thank you for being here. Executive Director's report, Connor, please.
Yes, just quickly go through it. Doing business attraction in the pursuit of leads, so food product manufacturing is something that's very attainable for us. Hospitality, medical device, and then logistics as we see the Cardinal Health expansion. So we have some interesting opportunities also. Our particular area of the county and the state is seeing some cannabis opportunity, that's product manufacturing. Getting involved with the Rotary and then local community organizations, continuing to build the IDA brand, trying to build community connections. We're connecting with SUNY Orange and then working on targeted workforce development training, specifically tailored towards aerospace engineering and some higher end engineering skills. Also working with SUNY Orange on potentially a collaborative workforce development initiative grant opportunity. Matters to take note of, Montgomery moratorium has been lifted as of August 3rd, I believe. And ideas moving forward, so continuing to work with SUNY Orange on aerospace parts manufacturing, and also working with acquisitions to film testimonial videos of IDA projects. Quick enough?
Yes, comments, questions, board? We good? Let's move on to the financial report for July, please. Matt Stoddard, our treasurer.
Thank you. Checkbook beginning balance from last report, $352,252.43. Deposits for that last month, $953.54, bringing the total to $353,205.97. Checks going out. 1697, Connor Eckert, hotel expense and mileage, 602.77. Burke, Millie, Golden, and Norton, $2,190. Connor Eckert, MVP breakfast event, $50. And Megan Hertland, May and June, $1,000. Bringing checks for the month were $3,842.77, bringing the account balance to $349,363.20. Sailfish escrow, checkbook beginning balance of $13,720. Checks written out were to Loki Brill Consulting Group of $1,185, leaving the checking account balance to $12,535.00. Orange Bank and Trust, there's $349,363.20. Orange Bank and Trust Sailfish escrow is $12,535, and the Orange Bank and Trust money market is $455,943.45, bringing a grand total of $817,841.65.
Questions for Matt? I would suggest a motion to accept the treasurer's report.
I make that motion.
By John,
Second.
second by Tom. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Thank you, Bob. He's an aye as well as myself. Last item on our agenda for tonight is the consideration of a application change. Would you review that, Connor?
Just very briefly, it's adding an agency counsel fee, so as it currently stands, counsel, so the IDA doesn't pay our counsel for work done on projects, the project pays counsel directly. So instead of having the project or the council have to chase down projects and ask for payments directly, we propose establishing an escrow of $5,000, similar to what we do with Loki Brill, and the applicant will continuously refill that escrow as needed, as opposed to them reaching out directly. It's really just a streamlined operation. It's efficient, and it's what actually all planning boards that I know of do. Just a cleaner, simpler way to go about council getting paid by projects.
Question, that obviously increases our liability ensuring that the payment takes place, or do we already have that responsibility contractually with the attorneys?
We do, and every payment that our law firm submits to us and applicants is detailed and itemized, so we know exactly what they're charging the project every time, regardless.
I guess what I'm asking is it currently our liability under the current construct, or by assuming this new process, are we assuming a new financial liability?
No. So are you saying in the case of projects is no, I'm not gonna pay the agency council, are we liable to pay them? No.
But in this case, we will be now, since we'll be assuming payment responsibilities, right?
Well, it would just be establishing a third-party escrow that the applicant needs to continuously refill to pay the attorney. So at no point do we pay them for services rendered to a specific project.
I think, Tom, it would prevent us from approving an application or a project if the applicant didn't abide by the guidelines or the policy in our application.
Understood, but there's a replenishment mechanism in here, which is keeping the escrow full. If at any point that they don't, do we become responsible for any legal fees incurred?
No.
Okay.
It's not my understanding.
If it gets to zero and the applicant doesn't want to replenish it, then work simply stops on the project because our legal team can't work on it, essentially.
Just want to make sure.
No, good question.
Does the chair need a motion?
I do, Matt.
I'll make that motion.
And that would be to revise our application as just discussed.
Yes, sir.
So I have a motion by Matt, second by John. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
You're in favor, Bob? Yes. Okay, I'm in favor, so motion carried. Anybody opposed? We're good. Any other business that needs to come before us tonight?
Chairman Chris, it was brought to my attention by council within the last few days that the council is presenting a departure from your ordinary procedure with respect to environmental review on our application. The Village of Walden Planning Board had spent many months reviewing the project with respect to SECRA, and they issued a negative declaration. The common practice of the IDA board and of all other IDA boards that I'm aware of is to concur and acknowledge and accept the negative declaration of the local planning board. In this case, we've been advised by council that we have to start anew with the IDA board and that you will be conducting your own environmental review with respect to this project. And that presents significant delay for our project and a very rather grave concern that the review would not be as thorough as the planning board's review. They had the benefit of having 2 engineers present throughout those proceedings, which we most likely would not have. And council has indicated that this could be accomplished in one meeting, but as I said in a previous meeting, in the closing documents, the applicant accepts indemnification for your proceedings, and it's a concern to me as their counsel that if that review were abbreviated or not as thorough as the planning board, that it actually opens us to legal challenges. So I would respectfully request, and I apologize that your counsel is not here, but I didn't think that this was an appropriate point during the public hearing, as it is procedural rather than substantive, but it brings us to what do we do next in terms of this next meeting, because I've been told by your counsel that we are to start forwarding to them traffic studies, that we're to start forwarding to them a new EAF form, and all of this, it's time consuming, it's expensive, and it does feel like a barrier that's been placed again in front of the project. So I realize that you may not be able to make any comment on that, but I did want to be heard that that's a concern and it presents a very serious potential delay.
I can speak to that, and my understanding is our attorneys requested documents relevant so the board can make their secret determination that have already existed. So no deviation from the current process, just the standard process for making a secret
I have
determination.
the emails from council, and I mean, I'm certainly happy to enter those into the public record, but Ashley Torrey made this very clear that you would be starting that we would have to submit a new AF form, and that you'd be starting this process, not that you would accept the negative declaration. They did ask to see everything that was presented, but that you would start the process from the outset.
I think there might have been a disconnect in the sense we are requesting the documents out of a due diligence in an effort to ensure that the board can make an adequate seeker determination not to start the process on our own. That might be a disconnect, and I think we should reconnect with our attorneys, maybe on a call as soon as possible. It's not our intent to reopen this entire process. We've never done that, nor do we intend to begin to do
And
that.
that was my
I
understanding.
think it just might be a disconnect.
Okay, and I have provided the negative declaration from the planning board. I've also provided their parts 2 and 3 of the EAF form, but if there's more information that you require, certainly if that information could be specifically identified, because from what I understand, again, this was extended over many months. There were engineers involved throughout the process, and those documents may be in and of themselves voluminous.
Right. Okay, we'll reconnect, and like I said, I think it's a matter of just ensuring due diligence while making a secret determination, not reopening the process itself, but we'll reconnect on that.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else, board, to come before us tonight? Not hearing any, I would suggest a motion to adjourn, and I'd state our next meeting, as we kind of mentioned earlier, is September 14th at 1 p.m.
I make that motion.
Motion to adjourn by John Dixon. Second? Okay, Bob's a second. Sorry, I didn't see you there for a second. Bob, thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody.